what he is saying in the previous para is like this. We are examining all cases where the world is unreal, an illusion. Okay, it's a supposition. Let us suppose that the world is really an illusion, and what are the consequences? We will analyze and see. That's what he's doing. All cases have turned out to be illogical and therefore cannot be accepted. That's the previous argument. So we can't go repeat again. So we just finally he has seen all one by one that the theory that the world is absolutely unreal, we cannot accept. So finally, one final argument is there who the ones who insist that the world is unreal, their last argument is this. Finally, one last argument can be put forward that the truth of Maya cannot be subject to logic. Okay? You are arguing and saying that now you are using logic, but where does logic belong? Logic belongs to the lower level, and the lower level is itself unreal. Therefore, your logic and your arguments are invalid. Okay, that's the answer that the Mayavadan can give to Sridhar. And now he's saying, to that charge, I can reply in two ways. That's what he's saying. Okay, so I'm fine. Finally, one argument can be put forward by the Mayavadins that the truth of Maya cannot be subject to logic. It is outside the field of logic and therefore ineffable, anirvachaniya. The votary of Mayavada could try one last argument and say that the percipient and the world are both unreal, but Maya, by its power of superimposing itself on Brahman, can be considered to have some sort of reality which rubs off on the individual also, and this really lasts so long as the individual is in the field of ignorance, and it ceases when it escapes. So this is the final answer they will give you. They will say that your logic is not possible. When you are in the physical world, you seem to think that it is real. When you are dreaming, your dream is real. As soon as you wake up, spiritually when you wake up, you see the physical world is unreal. You see the dream is unreal. That's the example of what he says. When he escapes. So the counter to this view could be as follows. So Swami is saying, I can counter argue with this argument. He's saying, whose consciousness is experiencing bondage and liberation? No unreality can be put on reality. It can only be a real individual who can experience bondage and liberation. You are talking of liberation. But how can something unreal have a liberation which is real? So there again you are wrong. Again we are back to the dual consciousness of Brahman. So we have to suppose that there are two statuses of Brahman. Don't think that he is only something fixed and totally real. He can make himself also half real. That's what Sridhar is saying. In all cases where we start from the world as unreal, there cannot be a logical solution. We must discard the theory of Mayavada. That's what he said in the previous one. He is going on examining all the possibilities, okay? So now I come to what we have to read today. There are, however, two possible replies to the difficulty. The Mayavadan can go on arguing, okay? Now, I'll read each sentence. There are, however, two replies to the difficulty. If we get rid of the idea of absolute unreality and admit a qualification or a compromise. Now this is what he is discussing, and I just got to know the first reply is discussed here in this para that we are reading now. Okay, and the second reply will be discussed on much later on page 471. Now we are on 466. So just imagine. So we have to keep in mind what he has discussed in page 466. And when we come to 471, you have to remember, oh, he gave the first reply there. How many pages away? 5 pages away. So you see what I mean? It's quite difficult to follow his logic. But this is what you have to do. So the first reply he is discussing now. And what is that? We have to say, we have to admit the possibility. We are examining all the possibilities. This is a supposition. So I'm saying, let us suppose that the physical world, the Brahman is not something fixed and only omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent. He can also make himself little less. He can put himself into two different states of consciousness and two different states of existence. So he is proceeding on that basis. In other words, there are, however, two possible replies to the difficulty. If we get rid of the idea of absolute unreality and a qualification or a compromise. So the world is not absolutely unreal, but it can be half real. Let us examine on that basis. A basis can be created for a subjective illusion consciousness, which is yet part of the being. In other words, just as in our consciousness, I can think of something, I can imagine something, which is not yet real, but it is real to me because I am thinking of it. So it is half real. So this is what Srendra is saying. A basis can be created for a subjective illusion consciousness, which is yet part of being. Being with a P cap, that means reality. It can be half real and half subjective. And if it is subjective, in a sense, it is illusion. When I am thinking of possibility for tomorrow, it has not yet become a reality, but it is real to me. I can pursue it and make it real. So that's why look at the words he is using. Subjective illusion consciousness. Three words he has used to express what could be a possibility in your mind. Okay. A basis can be created for a subjective illusion consciousness, which is yet part of being. Okay. If we accept in the sense of an illusory subjective world awareness, the account of sleep and dream creation given to us in the Upanishads. Now we have to read the detail. So the Upanishads, what do they say? That there are four states of the Brahman. Okay? For the affirmation there in the Upanishads is that Brahman as self is fourfold, not only one infinite, eternal, absolutely fixed consciousness. No, he is not absolute. He can also be relative. Let us examine that possibility. That's what he's saying. So, in fact, the possibility I am examining is already there in the Upanishads. That's what he's saying. For the affirmation there is that Brahman as self is fourfold. The self is Brahman, and all that is the Brahman, and all that exists is the Brahman. But all that is the self, seen by the self in four states of its being. In the pure self status, neither consciousness nor unconsciousness as we conceive it can be affirmed about Brahman. Okay? So, in other words, pure self status is the absolute at the highest level. And what is that? Neither consciousness nor unconsciousness as we conceive it can be affirmed by Brahman, because all qualifications absolutely disappear. There is only Satchidananda, and you cannot describe it in any way. You can't even say it is consciousness. Okay, that's what he's saying. It is neither consciousness nor unconsciousness as we conceive it, can be affirmed about Brahman. It's a state of superconscience, absorbed in a self-existence, in a self-silence or a self-ecstasy, or else is a status of a free superconscious containing or basing everything, but involved in nothing. So this is the Chid Ghana, the consciousness which is absolutely concentrated within itself. There is no question of any creation at all. This is the highest state. Okay? It is inward looking. I compared it to the black hole the other day, which is a black hole. The black hole is, why is it black? Because its gravitational pull is so strong that it's only going inwards. Even light can't escape. Because light can't escape, you see this as a black hole. Everything that goes into it is absorbed and cannot come out. This is the superconscious, the Chit Ghana of the absolute highest level. So if it is like that, how does it create the world? It makes a super mind. That's what we will come to afterwards. Okay, so we are discussing the four states now. We'll discuss that only. So he's saying the Upanishads speak of waking consciousness, sleeping dream consciousness, and deep sleep consciousness. Okay, so this is what we have to examine now. So it is involved in nothing. It is involved only in itself. There is the highest level. But there is also a luminous status of self-sleep. Okay? This is the Sushupti, they call it, deep sleep. The first one is not even sleep, it is beyond all conception. The second one below is the, if you see from below bottom, it's a third level. Okay. The first level is from starting from the bottom, if you go, the fourth level is the absolute. The next level below is a sleep state, a mass consciousness, which is the origin of cosmic existence. You can say that this is supermind. Okay? It's a state of sleep self, a mass consciousness, which is the origin of cosmic existence. The origin of cosmic existence is the supermind, so nothing can be more precise than that. First of all, there is above the supermind, there is the Chit Ghana. Okay? It is no creation. Then supermind is the one that creates and is a status of self-sleep, sleep self, a mass consciousness. This is the origin of cosmic existence. This state of deep sleep, in which yet there is the presence of an omnipresent intelligence, is a seed state or causal condition from which emerges the cosmos. We'll give all the Sanskrit words and the English words later on, but the causal state, it is the cause of everything, it's the origin from which emerges the cosmos. This and the dream self, which is the subtle world of the spiritual planes of consciousness, which we call normally the second level. The second level from the bottom, okay, that's a dream self, which is the continent of all subtle, subjective or supraphysical experiences. And Sri Aurobindo has mapped it out, and he says this is the second level. Your mind goes into, not in the physical body, it escapes from the physical body, and you are in the higher mind, element mind, intuitive mind, overmind. These four planes of consciousness, he describes as four planes. You can describe as 5, 6, 7, whatever you want. But these four planes are what he calls the dream self. Okay? And it contains all the subtle, subjective or supraphysical experience. Don't think that subjective and subtle means there are no forms. Your thoughts are forms, your vital has forms, even the subtle physical, there are forms. Okay, that's a dream self, which is a continent. It contains all subtle, subjective and supraphysical experience. Clearly, this is the spiritual planes of consciousness. But Sri Aurobindo also sometimes uses the word ideal planes. Okay? And the self of waking, that is last. The physical world, when you are waking, because this is a very big puzzle to me. Actually, it's not waking. When we are awake physically in the world, we are actually spiritually we are sleeping. But you have to adopt one method. Either you start from the bottom or you start from the top. If you start from the top, it is the other way around. So they are starting from the bottom, the Upanishads. The waking consciousness, dream consciousness, sleep consciousness, and the fourth is the unmanifest. Okay? So this is the Upanishadic structure. That's what Sri is now examining, whether it has any validity. So the words are like that. In the physical, you want to use English words, gross world, subtle world, causal world. If you want to use Sanskrit terms, the gross world is the Virat. The second world is the Hiranyagarbha, golden womb from which the physical world comes out. Is a golden womb, Hiranyagarbha. And the third one is a Karana, is a causal world. Okay, Karana. And finally you have the Turiya, the fourth, which you cannot even describe. This is just, they call it the fourth, the unmanifest. Okay, Avyakta, if you want. Okay. And if you want to use ordinary words, Jagrat, Swapna, Karan. These are the words that he uses. Very clear distinction between the four states of consciousness in a very large manner. Okay. So, and the self-awaking, which is the support of all physical experience, can be taken as a whole field of Maya. So, Maya is starting from the overmind level right up to the physical world. That is Maya. And what is Maya? If you see from the other point of view, it actually fits perfectly. Maya is the power of the divine to create forms from the infinite. So it fits perfectly because overmind is the one that starts the creation. The potential of creation is there in the supermind, but the overmind is the one that makes the one the many. It starts. So now Srivendra is examining the possibility of four planes of consciousness, not only one, one which is absolute. As a man in deep sleep passes into dreams in which he experiences self-constructed, unstable structures of name, form, relation happenings, and in the waking state externalizes himself in the more apparently stable but yet transient structures of the physical consciousness, so the self develops out of a state of mass consciousness its subjective and its objective cosmic experience. Okay? Your dreams are, you really can't control your dreams. You just, and then they also vanish. They come and they vanish. So exactly in the same way, the physical world also vanishes when you wake up spiritually. You go to the nirvana, or you go to the self, or you go to the Brahman, or you go to the Atman, all same words in which describe the condition of the featureless, immutable, infinite, eternal consciousness, not identified with body, mind, life. So that's what he's saying. And he's comparing it to sleep and waking up. Exactly the same. This is Shankara's philosophy, we have seen that. No? And Srivendra has seen that it is not really very applicable. It is very good as an example to explain superficially, but it does not prove, because in the dream consciousness, Srivendra says they are real dreams, they are subtle dreams. That's why we are discussing the Upanishadic formula. But I'm reading the next sentence. But the waking state is not a true waking from this original and causal sleep. It's only a full emergence into a gross external and objective sense of the positive reality of objects of consciousness, as opposed to the subtle subjective dream awareness of those objects. The true waking is a withdrawal from both objective and subjective consciousness, and from the mass causal intelligence into the superconscious, superior to all consciousness. For all consciousness and all unconsciousness is Maya. So, this is exactly what my problem was for many days. Why is the Upanishads calling this waking state waking, Jagrat? You are actually sleeping spiritually. And that is the philosophy of Gurdjieff. Huh? You may have heard of Gurdjieff. Gurdjieff was a um, uh, Russian philosopher who said that your waking state is really a sleep state, and your liberation is when you wake up spiritually. And then you realize that the world is, your physical life is only a dream state. It is unreal. So that's what is discussing here. I used to wonder why it is like that. But you have to give some name. It's only nomenclature. When you actually say Jagrat, spiritually you are absolutely not Jagrat at all. You are ignorant. Okay, so remember that. Okay, so then he is saying that's quite different from the highest. All these four planes are different from each other. So I read the next sentence. Here we may say Maya is real because it's a self's experience of the self. The self is experiencing itself as four different conditions. It's exactly like, as I said, you are in childhood, then you are an adolescent, then you are an adult, and then you are an old man. Okay, so but it's the same. So the self is seeing itself as a child. That's our normal condition. The self is seeing itself as an adult. That's the spiritual planes of consciousness, and you are seeing as yourself old, completely matured, and that's the highest level. Okay, so this is what Srivendra is saying. We may say that the Maya is real because it's a self-experience of the self. The self itself is experiencing itself, identity. Something of the self enters into it, is affected by its happenings because it accepts them, believes in them. They are to it real experiences in the physical world. No? When we are experiencing, we think that they are real. Creations out of its conscious being. But it is unreal because it's a sleep state. a dream state, an eventual transient waking state, not the true status of the superconscious reality. If you want to, sometimes words are confusing, but it's very simple. Each plane of consciousness, okay, you see things in a different way. That's what he's saying. And they are all relative. They are all in the field of Maya until you go to the last, that's the causal world, and there it is absolutely real. You experience the reality. Otherwise, from that Superman downwards, everything is relative, half real, half unreal. That's the solution that he is giving from the Upanishads. Here, there is no actual dichotomy of being, which is the Mayavada philosophy. There is a dichotomy. The spirit is absolutely real and the physical world is absolutely unreal. There is no connection between them. Dichotomy, a sharp division. But here in this theory, there is no sharp division. They are only graded realities. That's what he's saying. So we have to examine whether there is any truth to that. And Sri will come to the conclusion that is absolutely the right solution. Here, there is no actual dichotomy of being itself, but there is a multiplicity of status. There are 4 statuses. And by 4, you can go even more and say there are infinite statuses. Okay? He says that in the Life Divine elsewhere. Infinite. You can divide this whole range from bottom to the top in many, many ways. Sri Aurobindo follows the Vedic method of 7 planes. The Upanishads are dividing into 4 planes. Okay? Then some of the philosophies all over the world, ether, air, fire, water, earth, they divide into 5 planes. Okay? So it depends on how you want to, because it's not a staircase, it's a ramp. So you can divide as you want for your own convenience. Here there is no actual dichotomy of being itself, but there is a multiplicity of status, many statuses. Of the one being, there is no original dual consciousness implying a will in the uncreated to create illusory things out of a non-existence. It is not that there is a desire in the absolute reality, let me create something unreal. Okay, that's what the Mayavadins are saying. Siddhartha says there cannot be any such thing. It is creating half real, half unreal. It is creating gradations of itself in the uncreated to create illusory things out of non-existence. But there is one being in states of superconscious and consciousness, each with its own nature of self-experience. Each world has got its own laws and its own statuses and rules. But the lower states, although they have a reality, are yet qualified by building and seeing of subjective self-concentrations, which are not the real. Okay? So we have to admit in this Upanishadic philosophy that the lower ones, the mind is creating, okay? But which are not real. The one self sees itself as many, but this multiple existence is subjective. It has a multiplicity of states of consciousness, but this multiplicity also is subjective. There is a reality of subjective experience of a real being, but no objective universe. In fact, in the physical world, we have also seen that that's what the Buddhists are saying. And that's what is a physical fact also. Even biologically, if you see, absolutely from a biological level, it is the senses that are making you aware of the universe. If your senses are not there, the universe doesn't exist for you. So it is something created by your senses. And that is defective. I can be blind, I won't see. I can be deaf, I won't hear. Okay? So my nose, my brother his olfactory nerves don't work, so he can't smell. It's very funny, but that also is true. It can happen. Okay, he says he has no sense of smell at all. So not only you can have loss of vision, you can have loss of hearing, you can also have loss of touch also, because that also is created by your biological system. I remember when I had my hernia operation, okay, small nerves get cut, okay. So for about 1 week or 10 days or maybe a little more, if I touch that area, there is no sensation because nerves were cut. But later on, slowly the body rebuilds the nerves. So then the sensation came back. But that's what he's saying. The world that you are seeing at this level is created by your senses. And those senses are very defective. Proof is, yes, you can't see. Blind people can't see. Deaf people can't hear. So that is unreal in that sense. Okay? Why do you need senses to create the world? You don't. You can use other. So if you go up in consciousness, you will see that the physical world is different from what you are seeing at the physical world. That's what it's saying. Okay. But this multiplicity also is subjective because your senses are creating a subjective world for you. There is a reality of subjective experience of a real being, but no objective universe. So that completes the. So he has examined the Upanishadic theory. Okay. So now he continues with the next para. Let us see what he says in the next para. As I told you, okay, this is a very, I keep repeating this. There are two ways of reading this chapter. One is, wait, don't go into all these complications and logic and all that. Just tell me what Srimad is saying is the truth. Okay, that's one. But Srimad is saying there are so many ways of looking at the truth. Let us examine all of them. The Mahavadan is looking in some way. Is he absolutely wrong? No. He is half right, half wrong. What about the Buddhist? Is he absolutely wrong? No. That also is half real, half real. What about the materialist? Even he is not totally wrong. Okay. Then finally, his own theory is that all are partially true and the world is real, but not in the way you see it. There is a reality to the physical world. The divine presence is there in the physical world, but you are not seeing it. So when you are made to realize that the unreality of what you are seeing, you think the world is unreal. It is not. Okay? The world is not unreal. The forms that you see are unreal. That's what Selva is saying. So you can either come to that, or if you are really interested in logic, you are a intellectual gymnast and an acrobat, then you can follow each argument that he is doing. We are trying to do that half, okay? So let's read the next one. It may be noted, so one of you has to read. If Archana is going to, yeah.
Shall I read?
Yeah, one of you has to read. Yasmin, you can read.
Because Archana Di may have to go early.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Yes, my net is also a problem, Yasmin. Yasmin or
Pardon?
Shilpa, whoever can read.
Okay.
Yasmin or Shilpa, whoever can read. My net is also not working well.
Yeah, so I'm reading.
Okay.
Yes.
It may be noted, however, that nowhere in the Upanishads is it actually laid down that the threefold status is a condition of illusion or the creation of an unreality. It is constantly affirmed that all this, that is, this universe we are now supposing to have been constructed by Maya, is the Brahman, the reality. The Brahman becomes all these beings. All beings must be seen in the self, the reality, and the reality must be seen in them. The reality must be seen as being actually all these beings. For not only the self is Brahman, but all is the self. All this, that is the Brahman, the reality. The emphatic asseveration leaves no room for an illusionary Maya. But still, the insistent denial that there is not that there is anything other than or separate from the experiencing self. Certain phrases used and the description of two of the states of consciousness as sleep and dream may be taken as if they annul the emphasis of the universal reality. These passages open the gates to the illusionist idea and have been made the foundation of an uncompromising system of that nature. If we take this fourfold status as a figure of the self, passing from its superconscious state, where there is no subject or object, into a luminous trance in which superconscious becomes a mass consciousness out of which the subjective status of being and the objective come into emergence. Then we get, according to our view of things, either a possible process of illusionary creation or a process of creative self knowledge and all knowledge.
Yeah. So this para is very simple. What he's saying is that the Upanishadic theory is fine, okay, but there is no mention in the Upanishads anywhere that there is total unreality. So this is he is stressing. He's saying that the Upanishadic theory is not, Vedanta never says that there is anything unreal. It only says that there is a downward movement of manifestation. So, but it does mention dream and sleep. And if it mentions dream and sleep, you can interpret it intellectually as the sleep state is unconsciousness. So that's what he's saying. That it is and he uses two words. Okay? He says the earlier Vedanta and the later Vedanta. The earlier Vedanta from the Upanishadic period, there is no unreality at all. But the later Vedanta is the Shankaran philosophy, which is the 8th century AD. The Upanishadic maybe 5,000 years earlier. Okay? There is no question of unreality. Then the later Vedanta, the Buddhist of course is 600 BC. Okay? The Buddhist philosophy started and the damage started from that time. The damage to the Indian conception, the Vedic conception, that the physical world is real. But the Buddhist philosophy, it was trying to seek a solution for the suffering and it found a solution. But the side effect, the corollary effect of that was the world is unreal, so don't bother about it. It becomes easier to escape if you think it is unreal. So that was the consequence. But the later Vedantas, Shankara introduced the word Maya. Maya, the power of the Brahman to create forms. So this form in the physical world, what you're seeing is really not true. Therefore, it was interpreted in the wrong way. When you come down to words, that is the problem. But Shankara is not a Mayavadan at all. But he used the word, he is the first one to use the word Maya in that sense. Okay? So that's why he can insist that he was misinterpreted. Sriyamda says very clearly that his philosophy is a very complex one and a very, very beautifully worded, he says. But it is not understood properly. It's difficult to understand, he says, because mind. In fact, he says Shankara is the greatest intellect that the world has produced. Okay? He and Plato. Sriyamda also has great admiration for Plato. Okay? So, I read the para. We have got nearly 10 minutes. So, I read the para. It's very simple this time. It may be noted, however, that nowhere in the Upanishads is it actually laid down that the threefold status is a condition of illusion or the creation of an unreality. It is constantly affirmed that all this that is this in universe we are now supposing to have been constructed by Maya is the Brahman. Sarvam khalu idam Brahman is the statement of the Upanishads. Okay? The reality, everything is reality. The Brahman becomes all these things. In the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, the bird with the blue eyes is Brahman. The bird with the red eyes is Brahman. Okay, that red-eyed bird, that blue-eyed bird, that little child, that old man walking with a staff, everything is Brahman. He says. That's the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Okay, very clearly, Brahman becomes all these things. All beings must be seen in the self, the reality. The reality must be seen in them. That's exactly. So, when you see a stone, if you see only the stone, it is unreal. But if you see the reality in the stone, that's what then you realize that there is Brahman everywhere. Note the word. And the reality must be seen in them, okay, in the forms. The reality must be seen as being. It's a substance. Actually, all these beings, must be seen as being actually all these beings. For not only the self is Brahman, but all is the self. All this that is the Brahman, the reality. We can give another example to ourselves. There are pots and pans and plates and whatnot, but all are clay. Or a better example in the Upanishads is on the table you put bangles, okay, golden bangles, anklets, nose ring, earring, necklace, but all are gold. But we don't see the gold, we see only the forms. We say this is a necklace, this is a ring finger, this is a, something worn around the ankle. But when you are in a deeper consciousness, you see that array, all is the gold. That is the reality. The gold is the reality, not the form. The form can be changed. Okay, that's what he's saying. So this is what he's saying when he says this. The Brahman becomes all these things. The gold becomes all these ornaments. All beings must be seen in the self, the reality, and the reality must be seen in them. You must see the gold in all the ornaments. The reality must be seen as being actually all these beings. For not only the self is Brahman, but all is the self. All this that is a Brahman, the reality. That emphatic asseveration leaves no room for an illusory Maya. This is in the Upanishads. But still, the insistent denial that there is anything other than or separate from the experiencing self, certain phrases used, and the description of two of the states of consciousness as sleep and dream may be taken as if they annulled the emphasis of the universal reality. That's the whole problem. You can say at the mental level that dream and waking consciousness are not the same. So if the image given is true, then the absolute is real and the relative is not real. You can conclude like that, he's saying. May be taken as. These passages open the gate to an illusionist idea and have been made the foundation for an uncompromising system of that nature. If we take this fourfold status as the figure of the self passing from its superconscious state, the supermind, okay, where there is no object, no subject, no object, because there is only one. Subject and object come later on when it comes down to the overmind level. Into a luminous trance. Note the word luminous, it's a trance, self-absorbed condition of light in which superconscious becomes a mass consciousness, out of which the subjective status of being and objective come into emergence. So the supermind, I am using certain those terms, but he is not using those terms, but you have to understand that way. The supermind is a concentrated light, and there's only light there. When it comes down to the overmind, it divides itself, subject and object. In other words, Chit and Shakti, which are one at the highest level, consciousness, Chit, starts looking at its own power. So it's its own power, but yet it is seen as different. Okay? When we look at our thoughts, we feel that the thoughts are different from ourselves. So that's what Sridhar is saying. Then at the overmind level, the multiplicity starts. The one starts becoming two, then two becomes four, and goes on, goes on, goes on. That's what Sridhar is saying. Okay, so then we get, according to our view of things, there you are. According to your view, at which level are you? You see things in a different way. Either a possible process of illusionary creation or a process of creative self-knowledge and all knowledge. So from there, if you see, you can come to the conclusion that the physical world is relatively unreal, or you can also say that the physical world is seemingly unreal, but actually there is a reality behind it. Okay, that's what he's saying. So he has examined now the Upanishadic solution, and he says you can mentally come to two different conclusions. Okay, You can either come to the illusionary creation or you can come to the self-knowledge and all knowledge. Note interestingly that all these are all half-truths. That's why this is the problem with all our viewpoints in the physical world. No viewpoint is absolutely true. They are all half true, and yet we go on quarreling with ourselves and saying, "You are wrong, I am right." This goes on, and this goes on right up to the overmind level. Swamita says that even when I was in the overmind level, I am seeing a distinction. I am seeing Purusha Prakriti. I am seeing one and the many, which is the reality. It has to be one. So finally, you go to the supermind level, and then you realize that that is the absolute reality. But that absolute reality is not limited by its own absoluteness. It can make itself relative. That's the ultimate truth, which Srivna gives us. Okay? We stop here today. So, next we have to read tomorrow. In fact, if we can judge from the discussion of the three lower states. Okay? So, Sunki, make a note. In fact, we have to read it. We have to read it tomorrow. Okay.
May we focus on that?